So let's revisit this issue that's received quite a response and a lot of attention online. It's the idea of traditional feminism, or just feminism, versus what I call neo-feminism and what a lot of people refer to as third-wave feminism. So this all started, this somewhat kind of feud that's going on, although I don't know how much of a feud it really is, because I don't think there's all that many people who believe in the fringiest aspects of that movement, but I digress. This all started because I took issue with a Salon article that was titled, "I'm Trying Not to Hate Men." And the article explains how the author experienced abuse as a child and was also sexually assaulted, and she's being sincere too when she says, like, you don't get it, I'm trying really, really hard not to hate men. And, the last paragraph, for example, explains how, like, she gets in an elevator and she sees a man and she's, like, really nervous and anxious because every time she sees a man, she's like that, but the guy kind of understood and was nice to her, and she calmed down in that brief moment, but she's really trying hard to change that mindset of default hating all men. And, look, I took issue with it because what I said is, if you change the title to "I'm trying not to hate any other group," there's universal outrage. Like, you can't write an article saying, "I'm trying not to hate Jews," because people's response would be, well, why would the default position be that you hate Jews? That's irrational. Same thing, hey, I'm trying not to hate blacks, I'm trying not to hate gays, I'm trying not to hate Muslims. Everybody's response would rightly be, well, but why is the default position that you do hate them, right? And then, look, I said, even in a case where, let's say there's an individual who they never knew any black people, and the first 2 black people that person met were assholes to that person, right? Hey, the first black friend I ever had stole my wallet, and then 3 weeks later I was mugged. Even for that guy, that doesn't then make it rational for him to just default assume that all black people are criminals after the fact because of personal experience. So I made that point because for some reason, now it's okay to talk in that way about men? I guess some people think it is okay to do that. And in all seriousness, that's the textbook definition of hypocrisy, where you just flip the script and it's fine, and then you do it the other way and everybody's angry. That's hypocrisy, and that doesn't make sense. So I spoke about that, and then here's some of the responses that I got to that segment. Quote, "Listen to the racist, misogynistic piece of shit from SecularTalk," and then they sent a link to my video. Of course, with a trigger warning. Another person said, "Fuck that. When men get their shit together, we can talk about the tone that abused women use to express their outrage." So you can never, ever, ever criticize any female on any point or any argument ever because men have had a history of sexism and misogyny and domination that's negative. And by the way, I agree with the latter part of that yes, men have had a history of sexism and misogyny and terrible things associated with what we've done to women and what white men have done to black people all throughout history. I agree with that part. But that means that you can't criticize any woman for any issue ever, for any argument they've ever made? Again, there's no logical connection there. That's an emotional response. Another one, quote, "Hating your oppressor is justified. Don't you dare compare that with racism and discrimination against marginalized people." Idiot. Yes, hating your oppressor is justified, but the issue is, who is your oppressor? Who is your oppressor? Is your oppressor the men who are actually oppressing you, or is your oppressor all men? Now, I did a little exercise, and I looked through the SecularTalk YouTube archives to see how we've covered women's issues in the past, to see if I'm such a terrible misogynist and I'm a terrible sexist who, my man feels get in the way of me being rational. I don't even know what that means, man feels, and I didn't even bother to look it up because I know it's some new age thing where people try to shut down an argument by saying something witty. It's like, oh, you out-snarked me, I guess I have to shut up now. So in total, there are 71 videos that come up in the SecularTalk archives when you type in the word feminism. A grand total of 5 of them disagree with feminists. Now, I'm not good at percentages and numbers, but what is that? Like over 90% of the time, I flat out agree with feminists. 5% of the time, not 5%, 5 videos, 7%, 10% of the time, I disagree. But now I'm equal to a guy who lived in Mississippi in 1954 who forced his woman to only work in the kitchen, and he controlled every aspect of her life. This is obvious. Now, in those videos, here's what I advocate for. An end to female body shaming and unrealistic images. How sexist of me. An end to religious oppression of women. How sexist of me. An end to gender roles, which I call, quote, largely bullshit. An end to birth control bans and shaming. An end to unreasonable abortion restrictions. A call for pay equality. I call for an end to unfair double standards about men and women, which I think still do exist, absolutely, especially in the realm of sex. I mock the no means yes insanity. I call the men's rights movement, quote, stupid. I mock GOP female outreach that included the dating game, because, of course, women, can't understand the issues. You have to talk about it through the medium of a fake dating game. And of course, they read Glamour magazine and used that as outreach for women. They put a picture on Twitter of them reading Glamour magazine, because you know how those women are. They don't care about serious issues, only Glamour magazine. I mock those things mercilessly, and I outline all the attacks on reproductive freedom, specifically in the year 2013. I cover that more in depth than anybody. I know more details and more aspects of the war on women than any progressive commentator, and I guarantee you that. I, for example, was one of the first people to report on the fact that they do a trick. The conservatives do a trick where they purposefully overregulate abortion clinics. They'll go in there, they'll take out a tape measure, they'll measure the size of the hallways, and then they'll say to the clinic owners, oh, sorry, your hallways are 9 feet tall, and now we passed a regulation that says it needs to be 9 feet 2 inches tall. You have to totally take down your building and rebuild it, or else we're going to shut you down. I was one of the first people to talk about that and give you all the details of that. And the titles of my segments include things like Report, Women Getting a Raw Deal, yes, how sexist of me, The No-Win Situation for Women in the Workplace, so you can see how I'm anti-woman, and 80 to 90% of waitresses report being harassed, Eric Erickson oozing sexism, GOP female outreach ad is downright insulting, and many, many more. These are just a few examples. And the point is, I would put my record of supporting and defending feminism and women's rights up against anybody's. So when I criticize what I call neo-feminism, it's not because I'm the enemy. It's because I don't want the correct and virtuous fight of feminism to be perverted and smeared by fringe wingnuts and for it to lose popularity. Now, also, let me get more specific on this, because some people took issue with I was very loose in how I define neo-feminist. Well, let me give you some clear-cut examples of what I would refer to as neo-feminism, specific issues where I'd say neo-feminists were involved. For example, if you're anti-porn. If you're anti-porn and you want to tell women you shouldn't be allowed to do that even if you want to do that, okay, that doesn't make you progressive, that doesn't make you a feminist. That makes you agree with people like John Hagee and Jerry Falwell and other insane evangelical far right-wing Christians. You want to control people. You don't want to give them freedom. You don't want to let them make their own decisions. You want to just define an entire industry as it's bad by definition because of my perception of how I want women to act. So you would be the ones controlling women more. I'm in favor of freedom for women, for them to make their own decisions. So any strand of feminism that is against women making their own choices, and they're against things like porn, you're not really standing up for women, you're not really defending them, that's not really feminism. Or it's a very radical strand of it that doesn't really embody the meaning of what feminism is supposed to be. Another example, when neo-feminists get angry over Princess in Mario. I'm not kidding, this is a thing. I didn't even know about this until recently. When I saw it, I was like, wow, this is a thing? a movement where people said, no, well, there's all the video game industry is sexist because sometimes there are games that perpetuate old school feminine roles and old school masculine roles where the male character has to save the woman. There's Princess and Mario, and that's sexist. Okay, it's a video game. I'm about as mad at that as I am at, Call of Duty leading to murders. Because you know what the reality is? Call of Duty doesn't lead to murders. First-person shooter video games don't lead to murders. Violent video games don't lead to violence. This isn't my opinion. This is a fact. There have been multiple studies on this. They all come back saying the same thing. And it's the same thing for the idea that perpetuates sexism in society is ridiculous. And what? You want to eliminate the idea of any old school feminine role, like a princess or something like that? So you're not pro-women. You want to mold women to never embrace certain things that sometimes they want to embrace. Sometimes there are situations where a woman wants to embrace the so-called typical feminine role. My sister, for example, she's a housewife, and she stays home, she raises the kids, she works hard, but there's a neo-feminism, a new branch of feminism that would come in and say, I don't support her doing that because she should be out in the workplace and she should be doing the things that men typically do, and for her to embrace that 1950s role, I'm against that. But no. But then again, you're not for women. You need to be in favor of freedom. You need to be in favor of every woman to make whatever choice she wants with her life. Some of them are going to choose to go into the business world. I fully support that. Some of them are going to choose to stay home and be housewives. I fully support that. You have to support it across the board. You can't just say we want to ban what was old school described as feminine. That doesn't make any sense. So to focus on video games, and also understand the video game industry is just responding to market demands. If it was an overwhelming majority of women playing video games, all the video games would reflect what the women wanted to see. But it just so happens that in that case, it's overwhelmingly male, so the video games reflect that. And there's also plenty of strong female characters in video games. So the point itself is incorrect. I don't understand when people want to focus on, honestly, petty things like that as opposed to real issues affecting women. It gets me angry because you're perverting the good name of a movement that makes perfect sense, that movement being feminism. So, and here, let me just give you one more example of what I would describe as neo-feminism, which again doesn't make sense. There was a case, it was either in Germany or France, where feminists stormed a Barbie playhouse to shut it down because they said this perpetuates stereotypes about women, and we don't want to allow any little girls to come into the Barbie playhouse. No, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes a little girl just wants to play with a Barbie, and it's not evil, patriarchal society forcing a role onto women, okay? And understand, if you want to have a conversation about, well, Barbie shouldn't be so unrealistically skinny with those terrible dimensions, and that forces women or girls to try to aspire to that, and that doesn't make sense. I agree with you on that. I'm with you on that. But let's talk about that. Let's not talk about don't allow any Barbie playhouses because I don't like what it leads to. That's fascism when you want to control society in that way. Now, in conclusion, I want to say this. All of the men's rights people, there's been some men's rights people that are acting like, I'm with them now. I'm not with you. I'm not on your team. Okay, pick another kid. Stop. Go get away from me. I don't agree with you guys, okay? I don't. The only issue where you have a point is on alimony and divorce. All the other issues are largely made up. Look, I am a man. I'm a white man. I've never been discriminated against because of the color of my skin or my gender. We by and large run society. This idea that we are oppressed is nonsense. Maybe on the issue of divorce and alimony, you have a case, and I'm with you, where we should try to make those laws just better in general, right? And they may unfairly treat men today, by and large. But other than that, you are whiny when you talk about these issues, and I stick by the fact that I think the men's rights movement is stupid. So everybody trying to reaching out to me from the men's rights movement, I'm not with you. Okay, go away. Stop. Here's how I would describe my beliefs. I am a feminist. But I'm a traditional feminist. I'm not a neo-feminist. Look, if you're focused on video games and you want to, in an authoritarian way, control society and take out certain ideas about gender you don't like, I'm not with you on that. If you care about video games and Barbie playhouses and you're anti-porn, I'm not with that brand of feminism because that's a perversion of what it was. While you do that, I'll be over here fighting for the Paycheck Fairness Act. I'll be over here fighting for the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. I'll be over here fighting for an end to transvaginal ultrasounds, which are state-sanctioned rapes. It's an unnecessarily invasive procedure, and it's the state raping a woman, okay? I'll be fighting against that. And I'll be fighting to bring an end to double standards and false gender assumptions. So I would like to focus on fighting back against unfair assumptions in society, fighting for the advancement of women, because I do think they still are certainly oppressed in society to a certain extent in many ways. I want to fight for that. If you want to focus on those other things that I think are trivial, petty issues, be my guest, but I'm not with you in that respect. When people act like this is a religious issue, like a tribal issue, like you have to take a side, either be with the men's rights or be with the neo-feminists. No, I think you're both wrong. Okay, there is a happy medium here, and I think the medium leans towards feminism or is feminist, but it's not extreme feminist like this new wave is. So the issues we should focus on are the ones that I laid out there, and also, like, you know, the men's rights people are like, Kyle's beginning to see the light, but he's still pushing the stupid pay gap myth, and he's still pushing the idea that there's slut-shaming and stuff. Myth my ass. I've seen the numbers. I've seen the studies. Overall, in the economy, women make 77 cents to the man's dollar. For the same work, it's about 91 cents to the man's dollar. If you don't think that's a problem, you're an idiot. Okay? And also the idea that what? Oh, women aren't treated as sluts when they go around and men aren't treated as studs? Nonsense. Nonsense. That's been my experience my entire life, all my friends' experience. Maybe your experience is different, but I doubt it. If you say that, I think you're lying. So there are things we need to change in society when it comes to these issues. But I'm done with the tribal, religious, pseudo-religious nonsense from both extremes, where I think they're both barking mad and they're both being silly.